What is up, BookTube? It is me. It is Monty, and today I am back again, once again, with the start of another video. This is a little bit exciting. So, I have 3 things I need to finish before the month is over, and we are in crunch time. It is May 18th. It is 30 minutes until the 19th. So, starting this feels right. So, it is about to be Sunday. We're gonna go from Sunday to next Saturday, and hopefully on Sunday I can edit this video so it'll be up on Monday, which is that June 1st? I don't think it's June 1st. Hopefully it's not June 1st. I mean, it's only the 18th, so clearly we can't get to the end. So this should hopefully go up on Memorial Day, a little Memorial Day moment. Okay. Love that. So we are in crunch time. Like I said, there are 3 things I need to get done. I need to read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, I want to say, because this book has been floating around Aaron's Discord all fucking year. And in my mind, everyone has DNF'd this book. But we are currently in like the prime moment for this maybe getting read because there's a little buddy read happening. People are actively in the channel for this book. And I have recently I cashed in on that 3 free month Kindle Unlimited deal. Listen, I feel like I'm a bad person every time I use Kindle Unlimited for a couple of reasons. One, I like hardly ever pay for it. And when I say hardly ever, I always get in on a deal. But I could have sworn I had a deal earlier in the year, but it let me do it, so I'm not going to question it. The only reason I do feel bad is because I understand that when you don't pay for Kindle Unlimited, like you don't really put money in to the pot that they pay out of for like all the page reads. So I never really contributed to the pot. I think the last time I had it was when it was like 99 cents for 3 months or something. But at the same time, like they're always running a deal on it. And I don't know. I feel like as an author, if you're willingly putting your book in Kindle Unlimited, I feel like you understand that people are also doing these deals. And you understand the risk that you are taking in getting paid via page reads. I don't know. Like, is it a little ethically dubious of me? Yes. Is it a little ethically dubious for Amazon to have like cornered the indie publishing market? Also, yes. Am I going to feel bad about it? Absolutely not, because I'm fucking broke. So it is what it is. But I have When the Moon Hatched. People are active. I'm gonna read it. I have no fucking clue what I'm getting myself in for. But we're gonna roll with the punches. We're gonna cross our fingers and hope for the best. And then I need to read Before I Let Go, and This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. I believe that these are connected to each other in that I believe these are what we're looking for, companions. Obviously they're romance, so I don't think that it's going to be crucial for me to read both of them. But this was a previous Lily Reads Book Club pick, and this is the current Lily Reads Book Club pick, and so obviously I need to read this before the 26th is the last Sunday of the month, so I really got to read this week, because I'm pretty sure we'll do it on the 26th, although because she always says like the last Sunday of the month, but the last Sunday is the 26th, and there's still 5 days in the month. I don't think that she'll do the 2nd, but she might also do June 2nd. But usually Kenny doesn't do that. So either way, this definitely needs to get read. And this, like, I would like to read. I understand that both of these are a little bit harder hitting. And so hopefully being able to weave in When the Moon Hatched will help me out. I have a couple of things on audio from the library that I need to get to. Like I have Good Material by Dolly Alderton that I've been wanting to read like for a long time. I only have a couple of days left on that library hold. So I might listen to that before it expires and we'll talk about it here. My hold on the 5th Finley Donovan book is going to come in any day now. And so I will definitely be listening to that because last week I marathoned Finley Donovan. What is the first book? Finley Donovan knocks him dead. No, that's book 2. Is it just Finley Donovan? And then Finley Donovan knocks him dead, jumps the gun. Don't know. And then there was a Vero, short story. I definitely think if you have not read the Finley Donovan series, you should read that short story first, even though it's labeled 3.5, because it's definitely a prequel. And if you read it where I read it, then you kind of know everything. And so it kind of feels like, what's the point? Aside from the little fun mystery. But I enjoyed the mystery, so like I didn't hate that I read it fourth, but you should definitely read it first if you haven't jumped into the Finley Donovan verse. But Rolls of Dice is going to be imminent. And then they've already announced book 5 title, Digs Her Own Grave. So I might be looking for that on NetGalley, see if it pops up. I will definitely be requesting it. But it doesn't come out till March of next year. So there's probably going to be a little bit of a pause on that. But these and When the Moon Hatched are kind of like top priority, and then I guess kind of good material, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to just renew that loan. I've been renewing a lot of things, to be honest with you. I've not been the best. This could be a week where I try to focus on my library, my like physical books, because I have like 20 books checked out that I haven't touched at all. So I might also do that, and we'll kind of cycle those in. And alongside When the Moon Hatched, it's just going to be whatever it needs to be. But this is me sitting down for this lovely, it's not even the last full week of June, but it kind of feels like it. Well, I guess it kind of is. Doesn't matter. It's just going to be me sitting down, reading for the next couple of days, trying to get into the mood of it all. It'd also just be a really good practice because back in June, if you haven't already signed up for the Patreon, let me know. It's down below in the description. I will be doing my little daily check-ins over there. So we're going to be talking all things Real Housewives of Dubai, all things books. That's probably all I'm going to have time for in the month of June. Although maybe work will slow down again and I'll be able to sneak in some other stuff. But if you really do miss me, that's where I'm going to be at all next month, every day. So it's going to be me kind of gearing back up, getting into the idea of, filming every day. I probably won't be editing this as I go, but, never say never. Never say never. But I will be back when I have a first update on one of these things. I have a feeling it's going to be on When the Moon Hatched. I'll probably throw the cover up this first time, but I'm not going to guarantee that When the Moon Hatched is going to be finished before I start anything else. So I'll try and be good about throwing up book covers, but y'all know me. I'm very lazy. It's why I sit in this chair and I talk to the camera and this micro. I don't be vlogging the way people really like to be vlogging. But when I have an update on When the Moon Hatched, what I think is gonna be first, I'm about to go. I'm probably gonna do a little sprinty sprint until the new Connections drops, and then I'm gonna play Connections, and then I'm gonna take my ass to bed. So that's kind of my game plan. But I will see you guys with my first initial thoughts on one of these books, and we're gonna go from there. Y'all know how this goes. You've seen a reading vlog before. This has been a terrible weekly vlog because it is currently Thursday morning, and this is the first clip I've recorded. I would feel bad, and I should feel bad, but I haven't been reading. And y'all know that over here on my channel, I don't really do B-roll content. So haven't been reading, haven't been doing anything. I've been going to work. So I will say that trying to read 3 books while I had to go to work and all of them were physical, that was a little bit ambitious on my part. But you know what? It is what it is. We're here. I'm going to get through this. I have to go to work today. I have the afternoon, mostly to myself. And then tomorrow and Saturday, I have the early morning, and then Sunday, I'm completely off. So, I think I can still knock through all of these. Now, the Kennedy Ryan might get pushed, but it also can't get pushed because I have another video I wanted to do next week. So, this video really needs to go up on Monday. So, we are in the time crunch era. Luckily, the Kennedy Ryan is a romance. And so, I know that I can read a romance a lot faster than I'm reading When the Moon Hatched. So, as long as I finish When the Moon Hatched by the time I'm done working on Saturday, then I think we can get through this. I might start cheating because I do technically have both Kennedy Ryan books saved on my Spotify, but obviously I have to do some strategic listening because you only get 15 hours, and both of them are like 12 hours. So I think what I'm going to try and do is maybe read half and half on audio, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's talk about When the Moon Hatched because I actually have been reading that one, so that's what I really wanted to update you guys on before I finish getting ready and ran out of the house. So let me make sure I can see the clock so I know what time it is so I don't miss my bus. So When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker. This is a book that was very clearly written for Kindle Unlimited. I think it has since been picked up and it's going to be traditionally published. They have some special editions in the pipeline. Maybe some of them are out already. I don't know. I'm not going to buy this book. But I'm currently reading it on Kindle from Kindle Unlimited. And this is, I think, what people think of when they think Kindle Unlimited book. Because I am now 38% in, and we are only barely getting started on something that could be considered plot behavior. Now, I don't think that every book needs to be, directly tied to a plot, because I am a person who is constantly on Twitter saying, give me back my 22 episode seasons, give me back my filler content, give me back my character exploration episodes, give me back the bottle episode, give me back the holiday special. And all of those serve very different for purposes that are not necessarily directly related to furthering a plot. Okay, I get it. My issue here is that it is not only we're not getting things plot related, but the writing kind of waffles. It kind of waffles between wanting to be really purple prose, giving us multiple sentences to describe a tear or the evisceration of an enemy or the singeing body or whatever it is, right? We waffle between that and then we get to the dialogue, and the dialogue is very stilted. And so it just feels as though we are kind of milking the page. More attention was paid to really fleshing out all of these like purpley prose lyrical sentences, and not enough attention was paid to like how these characters meaningfully interact with one another, and whether when they're interacting with one another the shit makes sense. Is it fun to read? Is it worth reading? Does it really add anything? Could we maybe fix that? And I think that some of that wasn't really fixed because we weren't really worried about that. We were worried about getting this book to be as long as fucking possible, so that even if people did DNF, they would probably still get pretty far into the book, and I would still get some kind of paycheck from that. Now, I don't think anybody is, making, let me take that back. I'm sure people are making really nice paychecks off of Kindle Unlimited. But what I mean is, like, I know that, like, every page isn't like $1. It's like a fraction of $1. It's like a fraction, maybe it's even like a fraction of a dime or something. I don't really know. I'm sure it's readily available. I could look it up. I don't want to know. But there's something about the book. It just feels like you paid for me to flip the page, and I am just very aware of that on every page. And why am I aware of that? Because again, we're not moving to the plot. So let me tell you what has happened. The book starts off, and we get a prologue about the creation of the world that we're about to read, which does feel lazy. It feels like very lazy world building because you just dumped all this information in a prologue and not necessarily in the text. Because again, we're not really worried about the text. We're worried about getting page reads. So in the creation myth of this world, we have the God of all gods, and he is lonely. He exists. He is infinite. He is all powerful, but no one can see him. No one can really interact with him, and he's lonely. And eventually some lesser gods spring up and they create the world, the planet that we're living on. In this book, they start creating different races of beings, like different magical creatures. There are dragons in this world, but the dragons and the inhabitants of the land are kind of beefing with one another, and the dragons are being pushed to almost extinction. And so in order to preserve themselves, the dragons fly into orbit and they just turn to stone to save themselves from extinction. And so there are just hundreds of these little moons orbiting this. I don't know if this planet, I don't know if the moons actually orbit the planet. I think they're mostly stationary objects. But then they also start crashing down onto the planet, which is kind of bad for everybody. Nobody really wants that. And so in order to stop these giant moons from crashing into the planet, the God of all gods is trapped within, because I think the God of all gods was like really fond of the dragons, was like really fond of the people. Doesn't really matter. So they trap him inside this stone, and this stone is, crafted into a gem, and this gem is, in the possession of the single family. So that's that. There are people in this world that can hear some of the gods, and if you can hear some of the gods, then you can channel some of their elemental magic and do things. So each little of the four gods has like a specialty, and that's a thing. And in our present timeline, these people who can channel the gods are definitely being hunted by the crown of the planet, and it feels like the whole planet is kind of like under the power of a single dynasty. Like there are different factions of this planet because the world is like, it's giving that James Rollins book I read. I read it in my Buzzwordathon vlog. I know the second book is like Cradle of Ice. The first book is eluding me, but I don't think this planet spins on any kind of axis because half of it is cloaked in shadow and half of it is in the sun. And so I feel like it doesn't really orbit. Most of the action that we're reading has been on the dark side of the planet, but I'm pretty sure we're about to travel to the light side of the planet where I'm on right now, and they're not really looking forward to that. I will say that I don't really like this like half and half thing. I don't think that I appreciate necessarily that this planet doesn't necessarily rotate. That it seems like a weird thing to me, because don't you have to rotate in order to have like a magnetic field, or do you just need a molten core, or is it both of those things? Don't ask me. I'm not like a scientist, but some of these things in this world just don't necessarily feel fleshed out to me personally, to me and my homegirls. But that's just me. This book has been getting eaten up by the fantasy romance girlies, which is pretty wild to me because the first 30% maybe closer to like 27ish. The love interest that you could ostensibly think is a love interest is not present. So the book opens up and we are with, I think her name is Rave, and she is an assassin girly. She is in the middle of a mission. She is trying to kill her mark. Why she's killing this mark, fuzzy in the moment, but we eventually get some kind of explanation. But she is hunting her mark. She kills this man. But this is kind of like bad for her because it kind of puts her on the radar of the crown. And so she goes, back into hiding, mostly at the order of the person she's working for. So she is not she's kind of an independent contractor, but she's not coming up with these ideas and these kills on her own. Instead, we find out that she has been part of this underground network of people who have these magical abilities that is working against the crown because for whatever reason, maybe it's just because there are like fewer of these people who can channel the gods, or they're just exceptionally dangerous because they can channel the fucking gods and use their magic. Because of course they are forced into service under the crown to fight in this like army that doesn't really seem necessary because the whole planet does seem run by the three brothers of this royal family. Like these could, it seems a little bit silly, but they're being hunted by the crown, and these people are like, no, thank you, we don't want that. And so she's not trying to be forced into service. She's trying to take down the crown. Of course she is, but it's just not looking good for her at this moment. So she's back into hiding, and of course, she is hiding with a person that she has like rescued. This person she's rescued is also the person that does a lot of her, like, she gets she's like her Q, like the fancy gadget. She gets fancy gadget from this person, but they're like magical gadgets and like protection runes and just like really fun stuff. But this person is summarily murdered. And so this kind of like pushes her to like avenge her death, which is honestly really foolish. And it kind of highlights that she's maybe not this big bad assassin that the book wants us to think. So it starts off wanting us to think that she's this big bad assassin, but then literally the moment that her friend is murdered, mind you, we meet this friend and they're dead within like 3 seconds of each other. There's not really a whole lot of time for us to process their knowing each other and like this real intimate, beautiful connection they allegedly have. It really is giving Throne of Glass fan fiction, but we're like speed running the emotional death that is supposed to like kick or Selena into action. And it's a little bit silly, but whatever. We're going along with it because it's a bookie book. I'm going to read the little bookie book. But we immediately go from her being this badass assassin to hunting down her friend, like murderer. And she is swiftly captured. And not only she's quickly captured, it's like not even really a fight. Like she cannot fight the man that has come to like capture her. Then we get to see her imprisoned, right? And when she's imprisoned, the book wants us to believe that like, oh, it was actually like this big knockdown, drag out fight. Like she killed 25 people in the process. And honestly, maybe she did. Maybe she did kill those 25 people at some point. But at the same time, like she was quickly, like not even 24 hours passed before, like between her friend being murdered and her being captured and imprisoned. Like she was not sneaky at all. She was not able to really finagle her way out of the mess that she had caused for herself. She was summarily snatched up by this man. Then we get some torture scenes because of course we do. It's like the second torture scene in the book and the first 25%, but we get another torture scene. Then we get a prison break from who I think the love interest is meant to be, who is one of the princes of the little planet. And so she has a trial. She is sentenced to death, and the little princess dragon swoops in and eats her. And so everybody in the trial thinks she's been dead, and they got the justice from all these killings that she's been doing. And no one suspects him of helping her out. So clearly, I think this is going to have to come back up because he is a very high profile figure, even if he's not really from the city where this all happens. Like, he's still a high profile figure. People are going to realize the homegirl that we thought we killed was not really dead. So I think that's going to come back up. It'll be foolish, but it's going to come back up. So that's something that's happening in the background. In the foreground, or going alongside this, we have these little journal entries. Maybe it's supposed to be clear who's writing these journals. Maybe I'm supposed to think it's this prince person. I personally think that it is Rave or somebody in Rave's family, because we have the diamond that is containing the god of all gods. And we have it's like these little stories about them getting their dragon egg and the trials and tribulations that they had doing this. The only thing that goes against it being rave is that we know that she was in prison in the past because, again, it's giving fucking Selena fan fiction. And so it would necessarily make sense for her to have been a child locked up and be an 18-year-old person who stole a dragon egg. Maybe that would make sense. But in my mind, that makes more sense to me thinking it's the prince because, again, we find out that in the most recent journal entry that the person in this situation, in this little dragon stealing eggs journal storyline, is now wearing the diadem that is containing the god of all gods. And so honestly, it probably isn't either of Rave or this other person, but it could be. But we're seeing them. We had a one-off chapter from a different character's point of view. Most of the book is from Ray's point of view, and we had one-off chapter from a different male character's point of view, where I think it was another one of the princes, and they were, I think it was their sister came to them because she is the current holder of the person wearing the crown that contains the god of all gods, and they want to free the god of all gods, which would be wild. She is in love with this man, so clearly she is not right in the head. She's missing a few marbles. Few screws are definitely loose. But she's convinced that they should break him out of the diadem. And he was like, girl, your family has not done that for a very specific reason, so maybe we should not play with that. But we haven't gone back to him yet from what I'm remembering. And so we've been really stuck with Rave. And now we're seeing Rave and Khan. I'm assuming it's Khan. It's Kaan. I'll look it up later. But we're seeing Rave and Khan, and they are venturing back to his side of the planet. And it's just not really fun for me. There's supposed to be like this like sexy banter between the two of them, but it's like I said, it's very cringe. No attention was paid to how people, one, actually communicate with one another, and two, is what these people are saying actually worth reading? And the answer to that question is no. So that's what I've been up to. I'll check back in. I'm not going to guarantee tonight, but hopefully it will be tonight. I will say that last night I definitely started watching Hacks. And so I think that in order for me to finish, and I also need to read I need to finish this so I can read the books for next week. It's going to be a fun time. But in order for me to watch Hacks tonight, I need to read for at least one sprint. At least one sprint's worth, like 45 minutes, I need to read this book. Not at work. Work doesn't count. Last month in April, my goal was to like find a reading routine that worked for me. And still haven't found it, spoiler alert. But I do know that I don't want my reading to count if it's like reading that I do at work. Because I do finish a lot of things while I'm at work. I finish a lot of audiobooks, either on my commute, or I'll start a book at work on a whim and then I'll finish it like pretty much like the next day or the day of. And I appreciate that. And it's definitely going to have to be something that I do specifically next month. But I also want to be able to read when I'm not at work. But part of me is also like, when I get home from work, I just want to relax. And honestly, because I do the reading for content creation, it does not feel like relaxing to me. It doesn't like there's no book that I read just for me and my own pleasure, and I don't post on Goodreads or something. So it continues to feel like work, and so I think that's part of the problem. But that's neither here nor there. I'll see you guys in a little bit when I have more to say about When the Moon Hatched. But for now, that's all I got. I feel like I look a hot mess, but I did just get home. I have the oven preheating, so I guess that it is like respectable maybe to be a hot mess. I've not done my reading sprint yet, but I'm about to. But I wanted to come in and update because now I'm 50% of the way through this book. So I'm almost 400 pages deep because the book is 700 some odd Kindle pages. This is deeply unserious. So at 52%, where I think I left off this morning, we had our main character, Rave. She was about to be executed, right? She had been caught up by the man that murdered her bestie. So bestie was dead. She went to get revenge for the bestie. She got immediately kicked in the face, was being tortured. And then from being tortured, she got sent to the prison so she could go on trial. And then while she was at trial, she was convicted of murdering these people and being a bad person because she's an assassin. And from there, she was sentenced to be murdered by a dragon. And when she was sent to the Colosseum to be murdered by a dragon, the prince escaped with his dragon ate her and then flew away. And so she was locked with the prince for a hot second. And I really mean like a hot second, like literally enough to bathe and then do some back and forth banter. The banter in this book is horrible. Please do not read the book for the banter, because the banter is very cringe. I think I already said this, but we go from like these really attempting at like lyrical purple pose sentence construction to some of the worst dialogue ever committed in the English language. So that's what's happening there. And while I was waiting on the bus this morning, we went from being kidnapped by the Prince Man to writing that shit hands free. Or like we were this close. It was just like some heavy fingering and his erection was out, but she didn't actually get to sit on it, but she really wanted to sit on it. And it was a little bit wild to me because it was just like you were literally just going back and forth with this man. This scene doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But honestly, what happened after this made even less sense. So she had escaped from being murdered for her trial for killing all these people that she did kill. Like she is an assassin. She did kill some people. So she escaped that with the Prince Man, Khan. And from there, she escaped him, which also didn't make a whole lot of sense because it was just like you were literally about to ride him. But after this scene, she like escapes out a window and is like climbing down, even though, remember, she escaped in the mouth of a dragon. So she's not really in like walking distance to the city she was just in. And even if she was in walking distance to that city, she literally just escaped from there. She was just on trial. She is definitely going to be murdered. Like, she is not really a welcome commodity back where she just was, but she thinks she's going to waltz in and like, maybe everything won't be fine, but it's like, what do you think is going to happen if you waltz back into the city? Because you've already made it very clear that you're not very good at your job. You're not very good at being an assassin, even though the beginning part of the book does that like typical fantasy thing where it's like, she's an assassin and she is the baddest bitch that ever baddest bitched. And usually I just accept it. Like, I don't really need you to prove it to me. But in this book, it's even worse because you go from that to like this character immediately getting knocked around. So she's escaping out the window, climbing down this trellis in the middle of a thunderstorm, horned up, and she gets to the bottom and she gets knocked out. Okay. And she then finds herself in a situation where it's like the people of the mountain range like have taken her in and they think that she is like their savior, and there's like this whole trial situation set up to like marry her off because they think that because she's the savior, whoever's like the baddest bitch, and I say like baddest bitch, like the biggest, baddest warrior man, but whoever is their baddest bitch gets to wife her and like make superhuman, they're not humans. Not no one. I think these are actually fays you just encountered, but because we keep, this is the other thing. This book does the whole like fae thing that Sarah J. Maas loves to do, where it's like male and female, but everybody's been male and female. So I don't think anybody's like a human. But to me, it's like if you guys are gonna be fucking, then you might as well say man or woman. You know, like to me, it just seems so unnecessary. It just seems so unnecessary to go male and female the entire book. If you're gonna be fucking, you just say man or woman. Just do it. Just say it. Just do it. Just for me. It just seems deeply unserious. But I digress. And so she's watching these people do the little tournament, and she's like, what the fuck have I got myself into? Like, what is happening here? And at the same time, I'm doing that because I'm like, how do we get here? How do we get to our main character is now suddenly this like promised savior to these random people in the middle of fucking nowhere, and people are like literally dueling to the death for her hand to like bring salvation to the universe. Like, they're gonna have the biggest, baddest children, and by doing all of this, they're gonna keep remember the dragons, they flew into the sky. Not all the dragons, because again, like Homegirl was sentenced to death by a dragon, but there are these dragon stones all around their planet that are just in orbit, and they've started crashing a little bit, but like we haven't really seen too many of that in the book. So they're going to stabilize the dragons permanently if they marry her, because they're going to be uniting the biggest, baddest bitches. And so one of the little warrior people from this group, this little situation, wins the tournament, and she's like, I don't fuck with that. So actually, I want to fight for my own hand. And I don't know why she's doing this, because this is the second fight we've had to see her in, and she's getting her ass handed to her. Like, Rave is not a fighter, first off. And secondly, this man is like 5 times her own. Like, to me, Rave is out here looking like this, and the man she's fighting against might as well be Henry Cavill or fucking Alan Richardson. And I'm sorry, you're just not gonna beat them. Like, it's so silly to me. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go out here and do it, and I'm pretty sure I'm about to see her get like her neck snapped. Like, this book just be going all over the place. And this is what I mean. Like, you can tell that it was written for KU in mind, because there's no reason for this to be part of the book. There's just simply no reason. And I say that in part because it's like, how did we even get here? But also, it just feels very meandering. It feels like something that was thrown in to add pages to a book that was already too long. And what kills me is that because it blew up, I'm pretty sure, Karen, like, it's already been picked up by a traditional publisher. When these books get picked up, they don't get re-edited necessarily. And part of me understands that. And to even like remove this section of the book does feel a little bit silly, because if you already picked something up because it was super popular, I can understand the hesitancy of like going in and removing that content. But when the content to me just feels, again, driven to the platform that it's on, which makes sense. Like, I'm not knocking. I mean, I am knocking. And like, to me, it's a complaint that where we have this and it feels so silly. But I do think that the content that you are putting out is going to match the norms of the platform that you're creating it on. You know what I mean? Like, when Vine was still Vining, or even, TikTok right now, like, the content you find there is going to be very different than the content that you find on YouTube. Like, it might be similar. Like, you could watch a book content on Book Talk, and the same book that you will see featured on a YouTube video is just going to be featured differently. It's different. The content that you create is going to be informed by the platform that you're uploading it on. And so I understand why you are writing this as though you're getting paid by the page, because you are. But now that it's been picked up, it just feels a little bit silly. And I don't think this is going to be, there's no way this is a fucking standalone, because we don't really have a plot about, like, the moon is not hatched. Moons aren't really falling out of orbit. I say orbit, but these aren't, like, they're stationary. They don't move, because the planet itself doesn't move. You know that thing is going to be there, because there was the scene where Rave was like, yeah, that's my favorite one. I see it all the time. So I do think that one's going to fall. I do think that her favorite one is going to fall. But we haven't really gotten any clarity about, like, why am I supposed to care about Rave? Why am I supposed to bring out Kane or Khan? My bad, not Kane. What is the situation where is she going to get her neck snapped? Are we going to release the godless, the god of all gods from the diadem? Like, there are questions that are very clearly not going to get answered in this book, because we are just taking our time. And so when we do move on to a book 2, I'm curious about, like, what that is actually going to look like, given the fact that in theory it is going to be crafted and created from a traditional publisher point of view. But we've already had this whole audience like drawn. It just seems a little bit silly to me. We also have not gone back to that other character who was like in love with the god of all gods. We have not gone back to them, or the person they were talking to, because it wasn't really their perspective. It was a different person's perspective. We have not gone back to them. It's been a lot of Rave and these little diary entries. I hate these diary entries with a burning passion. They're just so silly. But I'm going to keep it up. I'm gonna keep reading. Right now, I just heard the oven ding, so I can go put my pizza in the oven. I picked up pizza because I didn't want to cook tonight. I'm probably not going to cook tomorrow either, but at least I don't have to go to work until late, so I can just make breakfast, and I don't mind making breakfast. But I'm going to go eat some pizza. I'm going to do one reading sprint, because that's all I got in me. And then I'm probably not going to update you guys tonight. I'll probably update tomorrow, because in my head, I'm going to sprint, eat my dinner. I have an episode of Top Chef I need to watch tonight, because I'm a Top Chef girly. And then I'm going to go back to Hacks. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. And I will see you guys again when I have more thoughts and more things to say about this little bookie book. Hopefully it goes better. Right now, I don't hate it. Like, it's not a 1-star. But, like, it's very close. Like, it might as well be. It reminds me a little bit of... It doesn't remind me of anything, honestly. Like, it's not that it's bad. It just has nothing to say. It's just, like, a time filler. Which is wild when a book is almost 800 pages. So... It does have that complaint. Also, I think I was wrong about this one family ruling the whole planet. This does have a map, but I don't really look at the map in a Kindle book, because this is like a bad map. Maybe I'll look it up on my computer later, but I don't think this family is like ruling the entire planet, but they might as well be. Like, I think that is not the case. I just think that the parts of the world that we are familiar with and are caring about, they're in charge of, but I will retract that earlier statement. I don't think they rule the entire planet. But it feels like they might as well. Like, it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, in my mind, to me personally. But I could be wrong about that. feel like it looks like I just rolled out of bed. And I guess technically I did, even though I've been up for a long time. So I finished When the Moon Hatched last night, and I did not do a good job of vlogging this experience. Like that's just very obvious. But this book was also, I think, just not good. Let's just keep this in frame, I think. It just wasn't, it never actually even felt like a novel, to be honest with you. So I think the last time I talked with you guys, I was telling you about how I think it's Rave, it doesn't really matter. She had been kidnapped, and she had been doing some things. She was looking for revenge. She had had her death faked, and she was running off with this character. But then she escaped from him when she was about to ride that shit, No Hands. And she was about to get married off. And then she was in this tournament for her hand in marriage because she was going to be the savior of these people. And then from there, she got saved again, also by Khan. So she was saved by Khan, and they eventually did get to his home city, and we got a slew of secondary character point of views in the latter half of the book. In the beginning part of the book, we were pretty much stuck in Rave's head. There's a couple of scenes not from her. There was a scene from The Other, which is Rave, but it's her alter ego giving. It's giving possession. It's giving she is just being a cannibal. It's weird. The Other perspective. We get a chapter or so from Khan. We get Khan's, I think they're his siblings or people he's close friends with. But the latter half of the book, we are no longer just trapped in Rave's head, but every character is told in the first person. And honestly, they all kind of bleed together. But also in the latter half of the book, it's a little bit weird because Rave is still hung up on getting vengeance for Essie, the character that was slaughtered at the beginning of the book, trying to get to Rave to get her to come out of hiding. And I feel like that was only included to give us some kind of a plot moment, because there really isn't anything driving this book for most of the runtime. The book is 700 pages, and for most of the 700 pages, there's not a lot driving the characters. There's not a lot pushing the story forward. There's not a lot of just general world, there's general world building, because we're learning things about Rave, and it's giving Throne of Glass fan fiction, to be honest with you. It really is giving that Sarah A. Parker, whatever her fucking name is, was trying to speed run the first 3 Throne of Glass books, which is just a little weird. And so Rave is not who we think she is. And to be honest with you, I did kind of put it together. I did kind of put together who Rave was supposed to be. I would say by not 50% maybe, but the journal entries that we're reading from start to become very clear, okay, this is not a male character. At first I was okay, the journal entries, maybe a male character. And then I kept reading, I was okay, I'm wrong, this is not a male character, it's very clearly a female character. And so then it was okay, I can put 2 and 2 together, I can understand where we're going here. And so what was already giving Throne of Glass is starting to give even more Throne of Glass. But Throne of Glass has a plot. It has a fucking plot, In the first book, it's a competition book. It's a foolish competition, but it's a competition book. Then the second book, you see her being an assassin, trying to hide the fact that she's not quite, doing things that the king wants of her. She has her own motivations that she's trying to work on. And then Heir of Fire, you see that building, and we're getting the plot set in motion for the first arc. So that by Queen of Shadows is the mid-season finale. It's explosive. Queen of Shadows is some of Sarah's best work. People might hate this woman, but she was in her bag, deep in her bag in Queen of Shadows. Without Queen of Shadows, you would not have Sarah J. Maas running up the charts like she is today. I'm sorry, hate the woman all you want, but you cannot take Queen of Shadows from her. You just can't do it. Heir of Fire to Empire Storms, I think even into Tower of Dawn, but I know people don't like Tower of Dawn, but that 3-book run is people wish they were putting out books as strong as that 3-book run is. I don't even like Heir of Fire like that. So trying to speed run through this Throne of Glass fan fiction narrative is just really weird. And I think that if this had just remained indie published, I could respect it. I could kind of respect this not really plot driven, not really character driven, just kind of being in the vibe of the story for all these pages. But it's like, this isn't just indie published. It's not like a traditional publisher picked this up and did no fucking edits to this. And so it's kind of like, you did no edits to this. There's no kind of coherent storyline really happening here. They're coming out with all of these. Do I have like music playing somewhere? Oh, I bet it's this. I bet it is the breeding sprints. So it's like, you have no kind of narrative heft to this story. And so what are we doing in book 2? I feel like book 2, now that it is traditional, is going to be so much shorter than book 1. And people are going to be kind of upset, like, how do you go from like a book 1 that's that long? But when I tell you that nothing fucking happens in this book, nothing fucking happens in this book. It's so bad to the point where at the beginning of the month, everybody's trying to read this book. And I say everybody, I mean the people in Erin's Discord server for her Patreon. And so all the patrons in Erin's Discord server, they were so excited. They were putting this book in the thing. We were kind of dragging it a little bit because it's like, how you got all these special editions, but the cover really changed and you're just like throwing some foiling on it. And then the book came out, I want to say, indie in January. And then the traditional got picked up. So it got like really pushed out. And so it came out, I want to say March, April time frame maybe. And the hardback isn't coming out till like fucking September. So we were like clowning on that for, because what is this publishing timeline? But also, that it's a pretty quick turnaround for, crashing into a traditional release window with the paper shortages and all that stuff. Again, special edition of this book, hideous, hideous editions. Even fucking Fairy Loot was doing a special edition. It looks ugly, but at least it's not purple. I guess it can still be this like icy blue color. But they were kind of dragging it. And I was even like, everyone seems to be DNFing this book though. So like, what's really the tea here? But everyone's like, no, Monty, no. We're all buddy reading it. And so then literally I start buddy reading this book and I go into the channel where we're discussing the book and ain't no one discussing the book but me. Nobody's discussing the book with me. So last night on Saturday, I was like, at this point, I'm 80% into this book. Okay, y'all have seen all my thoughts. I'm so fucking confused about the shit that's happening. There is no narrative pushing us forward. But we're buddy reading this, guys. And so clearly I'm ahead. So I'm gonna pump the brakes. I'm gonna be listening to Finley Donovan. We're into that next. I'm gonna pump the brakes. But by the end of the night, I want some updates in here because it's just been me dominating for a couple of days. And everybody was like, yeah, we DNF this. And so nobody even wanted to finish the book. So my initial thoughts that this book was not good, even before I ever turned a page, before I ever cracked open the text, it was obvious. It was true. And so I just really hate it here. I hate it for me. I hate it for the homegirls because no one liked this book. Nobody was having a good time. To the people who are saying this is a slow burn, like, let's talk. Let's walk here because I do think that some people are like maybe enjoying this for the romance of it all. And to those people, I have some serious questions because what romance were you enjoying? What romance were you enjoying? Because it wasn't one that was written here. Wasn't one that was written here. Listen, I've been reading a lot of romance this year, both romantasy, regular romance. Like, I have just been in my romantic bag all 2024. And the romance in this book was just piss fucking poor. They are characters who have no kind of history together. Then we have that scene in the middle of the desert where she's trying to bounce on that dick, no hands. But then he's like, no, we can't do this. I'm not going to let you do that. So there's like some light finger banging, but then she escapes out the window into the thunderstorm and gets kidnapped and almost married off to these people that she just met. He has to save her. And then we have like this revelation. And so much of this isn't even a slow burn. It's that these two characters aren't interacting for most of the book. Because like I said, the first 30%, the love interest is not even around. So like that's hundreds of pages, like at least 200 solid pages this man, or close to it, that this main character's love interest is not, like Rave's love interest is not fucking present. We don't really see him. And even when he is present, it immediately heats up. So calling it slow burn is wild to me. Because again, like they meet up and that very night, because his dragon like swoops in and saves her. That very night, she's trying to bounce on the dick, no hands, but then she runs away and then he saves her. And then immediately we get the revelation of like who Rave is. And so much of the relationship is based on stuff that we do not see as the reader. Like so much of these people and their connection with one another is stuff that happens before this book opens up, before the beginning, the events of this book. They have a long and complicated history with one another. And that is supposed to be why I'm supposed to be rooting for them. But honestly, they have no fucking chemistry. Now, again, to be fair to the author, to have chemistry, you have to actually have characters. And there are no characters to be found here. They are just an idea on a page. And so ideas are very hard to have chemistry with. I'm just gonna be very honest with you. And then the banter in this book is just so fucking cringe. So fucking cringe. I didn't highlight nearly as much of the dialogue in this book as I could have as I was reading through it. But the dialogue in this book is so bad to the point where it almost feels like filler. It almost feels like these were supposed to, like, we're gonna go back and like rework it. And I only say that because every other sentence in this book is it's also tortured. It is edited to the point where we are just having too much of a good time. Like, we have too much of a good thing happening. The author is too invested in making me believe that they have a quality pen game. So we are really just paragraphs of unnecessary text to describe something. And then they have like these one word, trying to be bantering back and forth, but also the text doesn't move fast enough for bantering to actually happen. Like, there's always an unnecessary tag associated with the dialogue to where there isn't any kind of like this rapid, fire back and forth between characters that doesn't happen. And it just feels like we were going to edit some of that. We never did. We didn't do that because, again, it was indie. There's not to say that indie books aren't published because, I will say that it does appear to me that Sarah attempted to find a cover designer for her book. She attempted to, bring people in. I think the cover it's not my taste, but she attempted, which is more than a lot of indie girlies are doing sometimes, at least in the fantasy space. The contemporary girlies, they have their little cover designer on lockdown, but the fantasy girlies, it would hit or miss. And so this book was just, it didn't have characters, it didn't have writing for me personally, because it was so tortured to the point where it was no longer enjoyable. And that was a big criticism that was happening in the Buddy Read channel before I started and got in on it. Everyone was complaining of, like, there are just so many fucking words. And I was like, books typically have words, but no, they were right. Like, there are just so many words in this that it is unnecessary. Like, I'm not a person who thinks that we all need to be Ernest Hemingway writing, 5-word sentences, really breaking it down, going back to basics. I don't believe in that. I do believe we can get a little razzly-dazzly with it, but this had no dazzle. It was all razzle. It was very hollow and empty and dead inside. And so nothing about this book, I think, is worth anybody's time. Like, it's free. It's still available through Kindle Unlimited, so it is technically free, even though you have to like buy the audiobook or which I can't speak to, I didn't listen, or like the physical, but nothing about this was enjoyable because nothing happens. Like, it's not only that nothing happens, there's never this feeling that something could happen. It's not nothing is happening and, but we're going to have something happen. I just kept waiting for, like, literally there to be a point to any of this, to be a point to the running away or the trying to go back to the city. And I mean, there's supposed to be this point where, Essie was slaughtered and Rave wants to get revenge, but even that doesn't necessarily feel true. It feels pretty like, oh snap, nothing. I don't have any kind of character motivation. There's no kind of conflict. All of the conflict is like scene specific. There's no conflict that feels wide ranging. Like, there's no stakes made clear to the reader about why they should be invested, aside from wanting to see these two characters go at it. And even that, I don't really think really was written with any kind of investment in mind. Like, the fantasy romance is a very popular genre at the moment. Like, it's currently, riding a high. And so I think people are chasing that. But this piss poor. It just feels cheap and gimmicky, and like it feels like a cash grab. It does not feel like this was written because the author just had like a passion for writing, that had a dream to be an author. It feels almost like when you're like, those people who are like trying to sell you a course. It's 2024 and they're still on that course grind, thinking that it's like 2019 and you can, like, people are really going to believe that if I spend $500 on your course and I get other people to buy my course that I learned from your course, and I can just, like, we can all be in the course pipeline. That's what this book feels like. It feels like Sarah got in the course pipeline and she wrote a book thinking she was going to get in the book pipeline. And I think she needs to step out. Because this book does nothing. It doesn't set up a future book. It doesn't cement why this book should exist. It doesn't tell me why I should care about these characters. It is laid out. And if this was just free $99 living on Kindle Unlimited and the girlies were having a good time over there on Kindle Unlimited, head empty, no thoughts, no vibes, no nothing, I could at least be like, okay, well, people gonna do what you want to do. It's included in the price that you pay for Kindle Unlimited. But even free, the time that you are going to invest in this book is too valuable. It is too you have a life you should go live. So that was that book. On to Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice. So this came in yesterday before I went to work, and I knew I was going to read it. I just knew this was going to be my workbook because I was itching to finish the series, but also I'm sad. Like now I am in mourning because I don't have a Finley Donovan book until 2025. But I can say this. Going into Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice, even though I haven't really paid attention to what the people have been saying about Finley recently, like outside of Finley Donovan is killing it, I haven't really paid attention to what, the general consensus is, other than enjoyment seems to be on like a downward trajectory for most people. I was still having a good time. I think that El Casamano is just putting crack in these books. And so I'm just, kicking my feet, giggling, loving it. What I will say though is I did have the sense that I did want some of these storylines to start wrapping up, because as fun and enjoyable as this was, and as much as it was reminding me of, my teenage years watching Weeds, having a good time with Mary Louise Parker, I did want some of these El Casamano storylines to start wrapping up, because they've been going on since the first book, and it was starting to feel like they were a little, like the books were becoming a little too cliffhanger dependent on, we are going to keep teasing the conclusion of these storylines, but we're not really going to put the pin in it and call it done. This book, I think, does a really good job of wrapping up, some ongoing storylines that have been percolating, from Jumps the Gun, from Killing It, from Knocks Him Dead, while also, I think, leaving the door open to keep going for, what is the next book? Digging Her Own Grave. I really appreciated this book. I think that it does kind of put a pin in the mafia storyline for at least the moment. I'm personally not against it coming back up and coming into play. At first I thought we were going to like kind of swap out the mafia storyline for a more involved loan shark narrative, but I think even that is kind of in the rearview mirror here. I will say that the romance in this book continues to be my least favorite part of the story, because I don't like Nick. I don't trust him. I don't like him. I don't like the fact that like he is the love interest, and they're supposed to be like, he keeps finding these clues that very clearly implicate Finley Donovan, and it's just like, either arrest her or get off the fucking pot. Like, either arrest this woman or move. And so I don't like him. I definitely prefer the lawyer. And I really hate how Steven is still around. Now, Steven is the person who I think is like, his storylines have been really kind of been dangling since the very first book. Finley Donovan is killing it. We kind of got this idea that everything was not all right with her ex-husband. And then obviously Knocks Him Dead is all around trying to prevent his execution and like him being the subject of a hit. So I'm not really surprised that going forward, his storylines have not been fully resolved yet. We're still kind of dealing with some of that, but I hate this man. And the longer he sticks around, it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Because it just feels like he's supposed to be viewed as a viable love interest, even though I really don't think it's ever going to happen. But it's like, the longer he stays around, it just is, that's what it feels like. Like, to me, we could have had him be executed in the second book. Like, you would not have caught me trying to stop this man from being murdered, because this is what he deserves, what he needs. So Finley, even though I do think that it's just like, that's the father for her kids. She just want her, children have to deal with their father being executed. Like, I get it. But if he's still dangling around, I feel like we could still have the lawyer. And to me, the lawyer was just fun. It was a breath of fresh air. It was interesting. It was, exciting and fun. Nick is just very boring. And again, the only thing he brings to the table is he might be arresting her one day. And so there's like this push and pull of like, can she continue to keep her secrets from him? But I think she kind of has to. I don't think a series where she gets arrested by this man is not going to be fulfilling to readers. And so I don't think there's any real risk of that being the thing that actually happens. So that's what I've been reading the past couple of days. Like I said, I just kind of marathon through Rolls of Dice. And this was a fun story. We had Finley. We were in Atlantic City. They were trying to help Vero out, because Javi had been kidnapped at the end of Jumps the Gun. We were dealing with the police officer in the department who was like not really on the up and up and been working with the mafia. We were dealing with her mother in the picture. We had some fun family moments about her mother being feeling like she was not as appreciated by her husband. And she didn't even think that, Finley's daddy would notice that she was gone. There was some really fun storylines happening in the periphery. George is flirting with one of her coworkers. We have like a little sapphic side action happening, and it was like fun and interesting. Vero and Finley, to be honest with you, if we're not gonna get Finley and the lawyer, I do think that Finley and Vero is kind of a missed opportunity, but that option is also kind of firmly off the table at this point. So my gimbal just died, and I'm not gonna sit here and reconfigure the I'm not gonna bust out my tripod. So I'm gonna read before I let go. I don't know how much I'm gonna get done before I have to go to work today, but I'm currently in the middle of watching some reading sprints. So we still have 65 minutes left. It was a 90-minute sprint, and I've been talking for the past 20. I think I'm gonna shower, so I have that out of the way. I'm gonna shower so I can be ready for work, and then I'm gonna sprint with Olivia and Erin for as long as I have before I have to leave, and I will try and update again before I go. So I think I can get most of this read. I really should be focusing on the actual book club book, but as long as I can finish before I let go, I'll be okay. I think ending this vlog, maybe, we'll see. We will see. I mean, I still have all day tomorrow because I don't have to go to work, but I guess I could do my own reading sprints tomorrow, but then I have to edit the video. We'll see. I need to shut up because I'm already, like I said, this is a 20-minute clip. So I will be back when I have something to say about Kennedy Ryan. I started this book right here. Like I said, I started this book right here before I let go. Today, while I was at work, while it was a little bit slow because the audiobook is available from Spotify.com, and I needed to read this book today so I could read the next book tomorrow so I can get this vlog out. It's supposed to be out by Monday. It's probably going to be by Wednesday at this point, but I'm supposed to get this video out, right? So I've been listening to this book for the better part of my workday, and the way that I hate it so fucking much is kind of insane. So here we have our two characters. We have Yasmin and we have Josiah. And Yasmin and Josiah used to be married, okay? They were college sweethearts. They were living their best lives together. And they had a little family. They had an apartment. It wasn't so good, but they had each other. They had a dream. They had a dream of this big family and opening a restaurant together because Josiah's family, his aunt, really, because his parents were killed in a car crash, we learned, but his aunt was like a chefy chef, and so he was like really inspired by her, and he wanted to open a restaurant. He didn't want to work for somebody, and Yasmin could not cook, but she had this business degree that she was going to put to use because she's a businesswoman, and they were going to come together, and they were going to have this restaurant, and they were going to have this big family, and it was going to be beautiful, right? So we meet them in the before times. We meet them making this pact to create this restaurant they're going to call Grits, which honestly I think is a horrible name for a restaurant, but they didn't ask me. So they're opening this restaurant Grits, and then we flash forward, and it's years later, and they have their two children whose names like Deja and somebody else. Sorry, little boy. Little boy's like a genius, but we have Deja and little boy, and they were about to have another son. They lost that child. And Josiah and Yasmin are no longer married. I think that once upon a time, many moons ago, I knew this was a second chance romance. But I will say that the minute I found out in the book as I was listening, this was going to be a second chance romance, I almost really wanted to just like fling myself from the nearest rooftop because I hate second chance romances so much. In fiction, in life, do whichever you want to do. Okay, like in life, maybe there's some more gray areas. It's easier for me to understand like why you'd want to do this. But in a book setting, it's just, I think it's too hard, to be honest with you. I say that I've read some really good second chance romances, Colton Gentry, third act. I really still love it. Like I support it full throttle. But I think that in a book, there's this delicate balance, right? Because the reason you broke up can't be too foolish, but it also can't be too serious where it's like, obviously, you can never work out. Here, it's too serious. Like, the reason these people broke up is too serious, and these characters are too immature. It's too serious, then they're too immature. And so, honestly, the only reason these people should get back together is because nobody else on the face of the fucking planet should be having to suffer what they have to do. So, if you don't want spoilers, further than what I've already said, here's what happened. So Yasmin was pregnant with their third child. They were going to name this baby Henry. Josiah was away at a conference. What kind of conference this man was away at when he's just a restaurant owner, I couldn't tell you. Don't ask me. But he was away at a conference, and she tripped and fell, and she landed on her stomach. There was a placental rupture, and the baby did not survive. She had a stillborn baby. Now, I do think that it was a lot of Kennedy Ryan to, I don't want to say like put the blame like squarely on Yasmin, but I do think that it was a very weird choice. I think 'cause you could have a stillborn and not have had this like dramatic fall, and he wasn't around, and she had like meant to fix this floor. Like, we could have removed a lot of that and had the stillborn. It felt very weird to me, but whatever. So she had this stillborn, and it kind of tore them apart. And honestly, there's something that Josiah does in this book I think is too unforgivable. So obviously, most of the book is set in the present, but we do get this one chapter where it's set in the past, and Yasmin is like freshly dealing with having, again, like have to go through labor to push out a baby that is never going to be alive. Like, that to me is just so fucking traumatic. Like, whatever she did after that, like Yasmin, she needed to process that however she was going to process it. And so she had been sitting in the nursery, and she was just like, obviously not mentally well, like definitely needed to see a professional to get through this, right? But she'd been sitting in the nursery, and Josiah was like not fucking with the fact that his wife was still sitting in this nursery, that she was crying every night, that he was taking on all the responsibility at Grits. And so he came into the nursery one day, and he started painting over the nursery. And you could tell me that that was Josiah processing shit, but it was just so disgusting to me to be in this scene and see him do that, because that's also the day where she asked for a divorce. And so it was like, seeing him react that way, it just felt very disgusting to me. Because if I was her, I would have murdered him. I would have been Finley fucking Donovan, and I would have murdered his ass. I mean, she has technically, not going to get into Finley Donovan spoilers, but I would have murdered him. I would have murdered Josiah Wade. We would have never found the body. Like, I would be a widower, or widow, not a widower. I would be a fucking widow, because you're not going to do that. It was just so despicable to me and so disgusting. And I don't give two fucks about whatever Josiah was going through in that moment. It was just unforgivable as far as I was concerned. And the thing that is propelling this further, and like what else is making this so pitiful, is that every fucking chapter I have to read from Yasmin about how she wants her ex-husband's dick, and I have to read from Josiah about how he wants to fuck his ex-wife and how he misses her pussy and how he wants to just like bend her over, and like it's not fair that she looks so good in whatever she's fucking wearing. It is just so pitiful that not only are you like both too immature, like, we're not even considering the fact that maybe we should have a conversation about why we had a divorce in the first place. But it's like every fucking chapter, the only thing you guys are thinking about is how physically attractive you find the other person. And so it's just like, so we have learned nothing. Like, we have literally learned nothing. And I'm sorry, but to me, a history of being together, you know, children that you have together and being sexually attracted to one another is not enough for you to get back together. And what further makes Josiah a disgusting human being, as far as I'm concerned, is at the beginning of the book, he has this new girlfriend, Vashti, who is also the chef at the restaurant. And so it's been 2 years since the divorce. And so he is trying to move on with his life finally, even though every thought in his head is, oh, he misses his ex-wife's pussy. And actually in his mind, it's not even his ex-wife, because both these dumbasses in their minds refer to the other person as their spouse, and then it's like, oh, they're not my spouse anymore. Like, this book is so repetitive. Like, if this book is poorly written, it's because of how fucking repetitive it is, and how you have to be constantly reminded that, oh, they're not my spouse. Bitch, I know that's not your spouse anymore, but thanks for the 13th reminder in the same chapter. And so he starts dating this woman, And it's not meant to be serious, but like it just feels very here's the thing, it's not meant to be serious, but they have a family Thanksgiving dinner where he shows up because it makes sense. He's still trying to be a good father. Like I can't take that from Josiah. He's still showing up for his kids. He still, gets his little, they split custody. They have a good co-parenting relationship. They managed to work that out, and honestly, I think that's fine. I think you can successfully co-parent and move on with your fucking lives. To me, romance is always weird. And it's not even romance. Movies do this too, where it's like people can't co-parent in movies and TV and books and things. They have to get back together. It's like the Parent Trap of it all. And again, honestly, some people are just not meant. I mean, specifically the Parent Trap people, like the fun movie, love Lindsay, but like those are people who decided they were going to have twins and then not tell the twin about the other twin, like deeply unserious people who have no business being together. But in this book, Josiah, he brings his new girlfriend to the family Thanksgiving, where it's literally his ex-wife, the children, the ex-wife's mother. Like his family is not present because they're all dead in the car. Well, his parents died in a car accident, and his aunt died before the book, so he has no family. So he spends his Thanksgiving with his children and his ex-wife, and so the girlfriend is there. But it's not serious. And to me, like that's kind of a very important function that you just don't bring some random girl that you've been dating for casually. It also I also have this big problem in a book where I don't necessarily mind cheating in a book, but I do feel something about like characters using secondary characters like just for their own personal plot development. Like that to me feels lazy. Like, I'm not mad that you're cheating or you have this emotional connection with another character, our main character going on, but it's like, on top of all that, this character is only in the story as a plot device. Like, and that just, it feels lazy. It feels very dishonest. It also colors the character, like it colors Josiah in a way where he's like, I really love my wife and my kids, but I'm going to use this other woman while it's convenient for me, and I'm going to push it to the side. And it's just like, if you were willing and able to do that with Vashti, like, why would I not think you would do that with this woman you're professing to love? Like, what in your mind thinks that I'm not going to think less of you because of how you're moving and how you're acting in relation to this girl that you are leading astray? But all this is happening. He's kind of moving on. And because he's moving on, she starts dating this like senatorial candidate, which is deeply unserious. Later on, the ex-husband, like Josiah, starts talking to Yasmin about how the congressional candidate only sees her as a token, which is so wild because the congressional candidate low-key down bad for this woman. Low-key down bad. Like, this man would take the suit jacket off his back, drape it over a puddle, and then if it got too wet, he would just lay down in the fucking puddle for Yasmin. Meanwhile, Josiah has not done shit for this woman, has not proven to me that he has learned what he did in the past was maybe not the best. That's the other thing. Like, both these characters are allegedly, like, they're in therapy, right? They have all this therapy speak in the book. Their child is going to therapy for everything that's happening and how everything is happening to impact them. But these people are not talking to each other. It's like, ma'am, you've been in therapy for at least 2 years, working through your shit. And he just started going to therapy, but neither one of you are linking up and having a conversation. Instead, they went on a business trip to expand their restaurant to have like a franchise in North Carolina. And they decided they were going to fuck in the hotel room. And so it's like, so y'all are going to smash in the hotel room and you're going to go back home to Atlanta and you're going to talk to each other about just stupid shit and continue to have these miscommunications, and you're not going to talk. Like, it is just, y'all deserve each other. Like, you deserve each other. And not because like you have been through so much and you have, weathered the storm and you came out the other side. It's like you are two raggedy bitches and you should link up and maximize your joint raggediness. Like, this book to me is, it's not trash because it is, again, aside from the repetitive nature, Kennedy Ryan knows how to string a sentence together and she is compelling enough. But the characters that she is writing is a cry for help. It's a cry for help. And nobody answered the phone. The cry went unanswered because everybody gave this book 4 or 5 stars. Running it up, best book of the year. People were upset it was not in the romance category the year that it came out, I believe, because it came out like literally like a week before voting started that year, or like a week after. So it was very weird, right? People were very upset that Kennedy Ryan was not in that in the category. But quiet as it's kept, I would never have voted. I would never vote for this. Never in a million years is this ever going to reach Choice Award. Not for fucking romance. Maybe general fiction. Maybe general fiction, but even general fiction, I think, is a little bit of a stretchy stretch. So I'm currently on page 292 because Spotify was just about to end the chapter. So I read the little 2 pages I had before I started filming this update. I do think I am going to make dinner and I'm going to read the last bit of this by myself physically. But I'm going to go. I'm probably going to give you the update in the morning about my final thoughts on this. And I might try and start This Could Be Us tonight, but that might be a little bit ambitious. And we might have to rein it in. But for now, I'm going to go. And I'll be back later with more thoughts, more things to talk with you about. Okay, so before I let go, I finished. It's done. It's dusted. It is in the history books. I give this book 1 star. It's not poorly written. And normally, you know, for a book to be 1 star, it has to just be complete gutter trash. And I do think that Kennedy Ryan is competent enough. You know, like she can string a sentence together. She can keep you mostly engaged. But the back, much like it says right here on the back of this book, it says women's fiction. This is general fiction playing dress up as a romance because there's nothing actually romantic about this. For me to actually get on board, and of the second chance romances I've read this year, this is by far the worst. By far the worst of them all, because at least the other ones played with this idea of people talking. You know, in the partner plot, Xavier and Violet, they were also raggedy, much like these people, and had no business getting back together. But they at least had a conversation about like why they broke up. They were children when they did it. They were, you know, children making children decisions, and they had both Xavier was living raggedy and he was dragging Violet down, but again, he was still a child when he made that decision. He was in his fifis when he made that decision. And in this book, these are 2 grown adults, and Josiah specifically never, I felt, matured to a point where he could understand why Yasmin was feeling the way she was feeling after what happened with Henry and that stillbirth situation. I think I earlier said she went through labor. She had an emergency C-section, so I guess like maybe, you know, some of the pains of labor because of the accident that happened and they were rushing to save the baby. Okay, she didn't go through labor, but still a very traumatic, even more traumatic, you know, getting sliced open, organs rearranged, like it's still, you know, a long healing process through all of that. And I don't really feel like Josiah was ever in a position to like really empathize with what his wife had gone through. And even though he attempted to like confront his own feelings about Henry and how he hadn't really processed a lot of those, it still didn't work out for me in the end. And so this is just a general fiction book about 2 people who never allegedly stopped loving each other, but it just felt like 2 people who wanted to continue to fuck each other. That's what it really read as. Like, Josiah had already moved on. He had a whole girlfriend. He was bringing this girlfriend to family functions. And then suddenly in the middle of nowhere, he's like, actually, no. And then he thought his girlfriend was crazy because they broke up. And he thought, and Vashti thought that they were going to get back together, when clearly that's the only reason he would do that. The only reason he would have left Vashti is to get back with Yasmin. There's no other reason for that to happen. And then when they do start this like friends with benefit situation in like the late 2nd act going into the 3rd act, that too was fucking foolish. They were like, oh yeah, this can't mean anything. This is like a one-time thing. And then they started doing it more frequently. And they're like, this still doesn't mean anything. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. And then these 2 idiots think they're going to be able to adopt a child and not be legally married. Like, come on now. Can you do it? Sure. But I'm pretty sure any adoption agency, private adoption agency, state adoption agency would rather, you know, you be like an actual single person, not 2 single people living under the same roof. Like, that would raise some questions. They would be like, what is going on in this family? So, and also I don't really think they processed either together or separate. Yasmin, I think, processed a little bit more losing Henry. I don't think Josiah ever did. And I definitely don't think they processed that together. And so the idea of them like bringing more children into this house, I think, is actually bad for that child. They should be banned from parenting. I don't think that this is a romance. This is general fiction. If that was bad, this is almost worse. So This Is Us by Kennedy Ryan. I listened on my way to go get a milkshake. So I had a milkshake because I needed something to cheer me up before I let go. So I went on a little hot girl walk. I listened to this on Spotify, and I am now 140 pages in. and I can tell you kind of the basics of what's happening here. So here we're following Soledad, which I mentioned earlier. She is the housewife friend. So we learned that in this one, she went to Cornell. She's an Ivy League girly. She has an Ivy League degree, but she's been a homemaker her whole life. She's been raising her 3 children. I will say that she was initially in a swirl romance. So her husband was a white man, and she's already light-skinned. So you know these children. Okay, so we're more of this. So she was dating this man, and he worked at a pots and pans company, and he was doing some fraudulent activities. He was embezzling some funds, if you will. And so early in the book, he is arrested. He's arrested. Now, this is already after we see him interacting with his wife. It's not so positive. She's not really feeling it. They haven't really had sex. In Before I Let Go, in the 3rd act, she suspects her husband of having an affair. So I went into this book like, okay, if you suspected he was having an affair, why are we even playing this game? But they're playing this game of like, trying to make it work or whatever. But like I said, she suspects he's having an affair. And the love interest in this one is Jude. Is that his man's name? Oh, his name is not in the... Oh, Judah. My bad. Can't forget the Judah, not Jude. So Judah, we introduced to him first. And Judah is also a divorcee. He has twin sons of his own. They are on the autism spectrum. I don't like how that was handled. There's an author's note that talks about how Kennedy Ryan's own son is on the autism spectrum, and how for a long time she was worried about, doing this, even though she's written out identities that are not her own. Here's the thing for me. I think that if Kennedy Ryan was big and bold enough to have an indigenous character protesting an oil pipeline on their reservation, only to fall in love with the heir to that oil company, like saying that you were scared and afraid of writing about your own lived experience as a parent to an autistic person, like, let's be fucking serious, Kennedy. Like, let's cut the bullshit and be fucking serious. Like, you are a deeply unserious woman. You are not scared and afraid. I just do not buy that argument. You had the balls to write the indigenous woman protesting only to get dicked down by the oil baron. Like, let's be fucking serious here. Anyway, also Kennedy Ryan needs to be a serious woman, because I don't think she writes romance. These books that she is publishing with Grand Central Publishing. Now listen, I love Grand Central Publishing. Okay, they are home to some of Alyssa R. Sloan gets her books published there. Somebody else I really appreciate. Overall, like, I don't have any complaints about them as a company, but to say that these are romance books, like, let's be fucking serious. Kennedy Ryan used to write romance. She has written romance. She is writing romance other places, but this series is not fucking romance. There's nothing romantic about this. And I say this because in both this and the one that came before it, this series specifically, the Skyland series that she is putting out with this publishing house, these men are only obsessed with wanting to fuck the woman in the story. Like, it happened with Josiah, and then when Jude sees our girl Soledad for the first time, he just wants to bend her over and stick it in. And it's like, that is fine. There is a place for sexual attraction in books, but I feel like somewhere along the way, the romance girlies have started to conflate obsession with wanting to just go to Pound Town expeditiously. And obviously those two things are linked. Like, in order to... I do believe that you could have a sexual chemistry with somebody, an attraction to somebody, and want to get to know them more. But like, Judah goes from seeing this woman to like going out of his way to try to protect Soledad and her family and the fallout of her husband getting arrested. It just makes no logical sense. No logical sense. You think this man is so big and bad that he's been embezzling $6 million and maybe even more, but you can only assume, you can only prove so far, and not even prove, like, you have evidence of $6 million, but it could be more, it could be less, right? It's not likely to be less, but it could be. And so you find that out, and then you're sneaking through the backwoods, going through people's backyards to meet her in the she shed, to talk to her. She's going to you at the company talking about, I found some evidence, instead of going to a fucking lawyer. A lawyer could have negotiated the same deal that this man did. Like, it just doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't make logical sense for these, and both of these people I don't even care about the cheating trope. Like, I don't care that when she met Judah, she was still married and they had this little moment, they were kind of flirting. That was cute. I don't even care. I even like the scene with Soledad meeting one of his sons. I think she met Aaron first. I like that scene more than I like the scenes with him and his sons. Because as soon as his sons come into the mix, don't like them. I feel like the way people were hating on Deja in this book is how I feel about the sons in this one. Like, just get him out. Just get him out. Sorry. But it's so fucking foolish to me that we have this obsession that is not based in anything. We're not saying these people connect over anything. It's just like, I think you're hot. I like your ass. I like your tits. I want to be balls deep in your pussy. Like, let's be serious here. Like, you want me to, romance is more than that to me. Like, that's an aspect of the genre, and I'm at peace with that being an aspect of the genre. But in this series, it feels all consuming. Like, I'm supposed to root for these people to be together and be married and build a life together based on the fact that he wants to go in balls deep. We also find out in this book that her husband was definitely having an affair because she gets chlamydia. She gets an STI. She has a disease from this man, an infection from this man of a sexual nature. There has been a time jump, so we get an 8-month time jump. Actually, we've had a couple of time jumps. So we know that Judah was married 3 years ago because that's when the divorce happened, and then we jump forward 3 years, and that's where the events of this book and this book are happening right after. So this is first, and then this happens like maybe 2 weeks later. And then where I'm at now, well, I guess there was like an epilogue in this one where we jump 40 years. So the cheating was mentioned before that, so this takes place before the epilogue of Before I Let Go. Not that it matters, but now we have had an 8-month time jump, so we're almost to where the epilogue in this one was, but the epilogue in this one was like a year later, so we're almost even there. But for right now, Soledad has gotten a divorce. Her ex-husband Edward is locked up in a minimum security prison for his little white-collar crimes. Judah is obviously still single, ready to mingle, and our homegirl Soledad has been attempting to become an influencer girly to pay her mortgage. Honestly, I understand that your family has memories in this place or whatever, but I do think it's hustling backwards to know that you cannot afford this and the private school that your children go to and the extracurriculars that your children go to. And so while I appreciate the hustle, I do think that betting it all on, making it big and being an influencer and you're almost 40, like, not saying that it can't be done. There's that one fashion lady who's an older person, like, it can be done. You can do that. You can definitely be an influencer girly at any age. But I think to put all your eggs in that basket just because your husband had a little bit of a safety net in the savings account, like, I don't know. And now the savings account was run dry. And that's the other thing that always happens in fucking romance. The people in romance books are always like, no, don't give me no money. I don't want any handouts. I can't do that. Bitch, you're struggling. You are fucking struggling, and your friends are rich. Your friends are rich and you are struggling. Like, her friend Hendrix loans her $10,000 and she's trying to, like, give it back. Bitch, you have no money. You have no fucking money. Why are you trying to give it back? Like, I understand being a proud person. I truly understand that. I myself am not going to go ask somebody for $10,000. But let somebody see that I am struggling and they give me $10,000, I'm not fighting you to give it back. Maybe, if this influencer thing does work out and down the road, I got you for $10K, I'll get you back for that. Like, I'm always going to be there for you, just like you were always there for me. Like, that's the whole point of this friendship. But for you to be, it's just foolish. It happens a lot. It's not just Soledad. A lot of the romance girlies do that. And to me, it's stupid, particularly when the person is struggling. Like, it'd be one thing if you were, well-to-do and you were asking people to give you money. But it's like your friends are seeing what you are going through. And it's not even a situation where Soledad isn't doing anything for herself. She is. She out here, she is hustling. She is, filming content, and she is putting out recipes, and she do got like kind of a day job. She works a little bit at the restaurant. So like, she is, she's super mom. She's super mom in this shit real hard. It's not like she's just like laying up in the mansion. She's selling her clothes. She's selling furniture. Like, she is doing what she needs to do to do things better than what Finley Donovan was doing. Finley Donovan was just like, my husband wants my kids, but oh no. But she was also brokety McBroke. Okay. And even sometimes when she was, she was also being a little bit too proud for me at times. Like, bitch, just take the money. Take the fucking money. Talking about, oh, I don't need the money. I didn't earn. But take the money. Take the money and run. And so that's where I'm at right now. It is currently 4:00. So can I finish this book today? Absolutely. Will I finish this book today and get film thoughts and updates and be able to get this out by tomorrow morning? That's what remains to be seen. But for now, what I'm going to go do is I'm going to fill up my little Stanley cup with my little ocean water mix from Sonic. And I'm going to be drinking my little ocean water, getting hydrated after my little hot girl walk, and knock out the rest of this book. I'm just going to be centered in this little clip because I have finished This Could Be Us. And I just want to say that having Colleen Hoover, Tia Williams, and S.A. Cosby as the blurb people on the back is wild. Now, to be fair, Colleen and Tia are blurbing Before I Let Go. They have Emily Henry on the front, also fucking wild. And S.A. Cosby, again, this man doesn't even write romance, so I don't even know what he's doing here, other than he's black. So explain that to me. Maybe they're besties. I don't know Kennedy like that. But what I will say is that this is so far not a romance that like it is wild to me. I mean, it is out in hardback, so like hint number 1. But this is just foolish. No, it's not. But I will say that the love interest Judah is foolish. And I want this to be very clear because I am a person who does love a romance where the characters are not necessarily together for the point, like for most of the narrative. I'm fine with things being like not dates and us seeing these characters getting close to one another and seeing their emotional connection to one another through a sort of like not quite platonic, not quite romantic lens. That is perfectly fine with me. What is not fine with me is characters who are not together, who interact like 10 times over the course of almost 400 pages and are saying, I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And it's like you have not had an actual meaningful conversation with this other person. They interact for the first time at a Christmas party and there's chemistry there. I will not lie to you and be like, there isn't. There's chemistry between these two characters. So that's the first time. Then when her husband is arrested, he shows up and is like, oh, I want to shelter you and your daughters from this. I want to keep you from the fallout because I love your ass. He doesn't say because I love your ass, but that's the only logical reason. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like he's just so obsessed with her. Then he spends most of the book stalking this woman because she's pivoting to becoming an influencer. And so she's, on Instagram and on TikTok and, she's posting her life and she's, talking about herself. So he gets to know her, but she does not ever really get to know him. It's not a two-way street here, which I think is weird. And then, so they have that moment. And then I think they interact at like this fall harvest festival where she's like putting on a thing. No, before that she does like a focaccia basket where she's like selling focaccia baskets. And so he buys a focaccia basket. And then there's the fall festival. And then they have like a Christmas moment with one another. And then there's like a moment where it's like career day at a fucking high school. And so they have career day at the high school together. But like, there's no reason for these people to be together. There's absolutely no reason. There's no conversation. There's no, other than they just want to bone and they want to fuck it out. And here's the other issue is that this could be like a really fun soap opera moment. Like I think that Kennedy Ryan is like a fan of like soapy dramas, like mess, but she's not a fan of like actually trying to write that, because this setup where your love interest sent your husband to prison because your husband was he was stealing from the company, that's out of a soap opera. It's 100%, mess and melodrama. But the book itself is not melodrama. The book itself takes itself so seriously that it's like any review talking about, oh, it's so messy and it's so fun, but it's not. Like, that's the thing. Like, at every possible turn for this to actually be messy, Kennedy Ryan does not allow for that to happen. There is no moment where characters actually get to be messy people. It's like chock full of characters trying to be deep and introspective and understanding and pathologizing and like talking through their emotions, but never talking through their emotions with the person that they have those feelings about. They're not talking through their emotions, talking about, oh, I like her, but it's complicated because of X, Y, and Z, or I like him, but it's complicated because of X, Y, and Z. Both of these books are filled with characters talking about things, but not to the people that you need to actually talk to, which is so silly. I'm a person who likes side characters and I want side characters to feel important to the story, but they should never feel so important to the story that they cannot talk to the love interest. Like, if we got to kill off some side characters, just push them out of the fucking narrative, let's get rid of the fucking side characters. Because specifically for this couple, for these people to not have any kind of conversation and then in the book talk with all kinds of I love yous, and it doesn't make any sense. Literally does not make sense. It does not pass a believability check. Like, it It just doesn't. It's so silly that it is no longer pleasant or fun to read about. And it doesn't matter how well strung together the sentences are or how many sentences in the book are complete. It doesn't matter. Um, Nothing else matters when I feel like the basic logic at the core of the story not only does not make sense, but then we don't really move past it. We don't attempt to make it make sense. We don't attempt to do anything fun or interesting with this concept of, oh, you sent my husband to prison. How do you not have fun with that? Like, how do you come up with that plot line and then write such a boring story that is going to put the reader to sleep? How, like, that does take talent. I can't say that Kennedy Ryan is talentless, but I will say that she has not adequately utilized the talents that have been bestowed upon her. And in true, that's true of all three books I read, both Sarah Parker's book and now the Kennedy Ryan books. It's like, y'all spent so much time putting all these words into the book, but we never thought to like ask if any of the words that we're putting here add up to anything, if it makes for an enjoyable reading experience, if it makes for a convincing narrative, because it just simply does not. Specifically when all of these books are supposed to have a romantic element. If both these books were literally just general fiction books, I still think they would be deeply unsatisfying, and I would still hate this one because Josiah deserves to rot in hell. Judah just being a weird stalker. There's a point in this book where I quote, like, I think it's like their third interaction with one another, and it's during the focaccia basket moment, and he sees her. I think it's during the focaccia basket moment. By the way, like, he sees her on the porch, and he's like, or on the street, like he sees her car. And he's like, what if I just, kidnapped her? Like, what if I just didn't let her leave my house? Would that be kidnapping? Would it be abduction? I only have good intentions. He's just a weirdo. He's a weird weirdo. There's a point in this book where a character, like one of their children, is in trouble. Like, they have a medical emergency. That medical emergency was not necessary. There are a million and one things that could have had these characters forced to talk about it, like, talk to one another, and that just was not the moment. Particularly because it like, in reading the scene, it almost felt like they were going to fuck in the hospital, and it's like, one of your children just had a medical emergency, and now you're going to fuck in the stairway of the hospital. Like, I've watched Grey's Anatomy too. Okay, so I am not too unfamiliar with inopportune sexual encounters in a hospital, but like, let's be serious here, like. Particularly these two characters. Luckily, I was wrong. There was no inopportune sex moment in the hospital, but it was just another part of the story that just felt so deeply unserious. It was like, of course we're going down this road. Like, of course you're doing this. But at that point, it was also too late. It was too late because for most of the other book, for most of the rest of the book, it had already taken itself too seriously. So there was no time for me to enjoy you attempting to like bust into the spontaneous moment. So This Could Be Us was better than Before I Let Go, but neither one of these are books I think anybody should read, and neither is When the Moon Hatched. I had some of the worst reading of my week this week. If it was not for the unscheduled Finley Donovan interruption, would have been a horrible reading week. So shout out to El Casamano because you really saved the vlog. You were not meant to be included in this, but you were, and you saved the day. So shout out to Finley Donovan. But these two books, raggedy. While I read Hendrick's book, I'm not rushing out to read it. I did only read this because this is the Lily Reads Book Club book for the month of May, and so I had to read it because I'm being a good book club participant. And I think this was a book club pick last year before I was being a good book club participant. But I do fear if I had read this last year, there's no way in hell I would have read this one. Although maybe, because again, like, Soledad as a character is a character I do like. I do like a housewife. I like seeing a woman, picking herself back up together after she's been, left shattered, and realized that, she hadn't really shattered and she had always been this strong and she had always been doing what needed to be done. But now everyone else is seeing that she's doing it too. So I like Soledad. I just want better for her. I want better for her. And to be fair, I don't really care if Yasmin has better. We'll say that. I do think that she deserves better, particularly in the moments after, like, leading up to her divorce. But after that, when she was still hung up on that man that did her dirty, it's like, clearly you want to lay down with the dog. So Yasmin got to live with the fleas. But Soledad, she had bad choices, made that had nothing. She didn't really make those choices. They were made for her. So Soledad, I still want better for. But Yasmin, there ain't just no hope. You can't save everybody. Not everyone can get, no one else is. Some people gotta get left behind, And Yasmin, she wanted the children left behind. But that is my reading week. Thank you for spending it with me. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this edited so it can be up at a reasonable hour on a Monday morning for you all. I will be back next week with another reading vlog. I know, back-to-back reading vlogs. Who am I? Next week, I will be reading the J. Bree books. I already have it planned out. I have it scheduled. I have it mapped up in my mind. So I'm going to be reading the J. Bree Mortal Fates situation, the one with the book that was supposed to come out and then didn't come out. Go watch Erin's video. She'll give you the 411. But she didn't read it, so I'm going to read it for everybody. Even though everyone else has already, other people have read the book, but I'm going to read it for the streets. Should y'all read that book? So that'll be next week. And then the week after that, I think I'm going to drop my pairing reading vlog, the new Casey McQuiston. So that is technically an old video because the patrons got it first, but y'all are going to see that in a couple of weeks. So content is going to be churning out semi-regularly over here. And then obviously the end of the month is coming up, so there'll be a wrap-up moment. So plenty of fun is to be had. But for now, I'm going to go. I'll see you guys again soon. But until then, and until next time.